67. Stanza 69. You have no book? No buku. All right. Madhuva manyati balo yava papam na pachyati yada ca pachyati papam atha balo dukkhang nigacchati. Madhuva manyati balo yava papam na pachyati yada ca pachyati papam atha balo dukkhang nigacchati. There is one word that you can understand, madhu. Same meaning, madhu, honey. As sweet as honey is an evil deed, so thinks the fool, so long as it ripens not. But when it ripens, then he comes to grief. Very simple, easy to understand. Madhuva manyati balo. Balo madhuva manyati. Fools things like honey. What? Yava papam pachyati. So long as it happens that not ripen not, as it ripen not. But when it is ripened, he suffer, he worry, disturb the mind. These sayings of the Buddha is very important for us, because we have a wrong concept about this. Because there are many people who commit evil, who do lot of bad things, who behave as gangsters, terrorists, murderers, thieves. But we can see that they escape and enjoy their life. When people ask this question, they have done so much bad deed. We know them very well. But they are enjoying their life. So where are the bad effects or bad karma or what they have committed? Here the Buddha saying is, yes, they enjoy their life just like enjoying honey, so sweet, as long as the bad karmic deeds were not ripened yet. Because the effect of certain karma, good and bad karma, we cannot experience immediately, or even within this lifetime also cannot. Do you know the reason? There are two reasons. First thing, by using intelligence, effort, energy, cunningness or cleverness, people can escape the immediate effect of bad karma. There are four methods that people use or naturally take place to prolong or to change or to overcome the karmic effect. One of them is Kala Sampatti, Gati Sampatti, Upadi Sampatti, Payoga Sampatti, these four. Here the last one. Payoga Sampatti, Prayoga. Intelligence, effort, energy. They use to avoid, to escape, to overcome the bad effect. For a certain period, or if not the whole lifetime. This is one method. Another important point is the Buddha has advised us not to surrender ourselves to even to our own karma, thinking that there is no other choice. Just like people think it is up to God. We cannot escape from God or from His punishment. We can escape. We can prolong or we can overcome for the time being. But it is impossible to wipe out or eradicate completely. This is the difference. Karmic effect follow us just like our own shadow. When the chances arise, then effect. Another example, then easy for you to understand. When your resistant power is very strong in your physical body, which is called antibody, when it is very active and energetic, any amount of germs and virus and bacteria enter into your physical body cannot create sicknesses immediately because your resistant power is very strong. Now take for instance, we take food, say 10 of us, same food, but different people experience different effect or reaction. Some people experience stomach ache and pains and start purging and vomiting. Some others experience difficulty of digesting. For others there is nothing, very normal. This is the nature of the resistance. In the same manner, the karmic effect cannot affect us if our previous karmas are strong. They always protect us. We cannot experience the bad effect immediately because of this. As long as these previous karmas actively functioning, in our life. But there will be an end to our previous karma. When we are weak, when our strong karmas are no more to support us, then the bad karmas get the chance to affect us immediately. Follow us as long as we exist in this samsara. Repeated birth and death never disappear. If not, by cultivating or purifying the mind, attain arahanthood and nirvana. After that, bad karmic forces have no chance to catch or affect. Take Angulimala, one who has killed more than 1,000 human beings. So he had the opportunity to become a monk and follow the Buddha and practice meditation, develop his mind. He attained sainthood, arahanthood, attained nirvana. Bad karma had no chance to catch. But there are certain bad karmas, 5. They are more or less mortal sins, as Christianity says. If anyone has committed any of these 5, it is impossible for that person to attain sainthood or arahanthood within that lifetime. Impossible. And also impossible for other good karmas to topple one of these bad karmas, one of these 5. What are those 5? It's called Pancha Anantariya, 5. Heinous or mortal sins. Killing our own father, killing our own mother. We may kill thousands of others, but those karmas remain as ordinary karmas, never become mortal karmas. But if we kill our own father and own mother, then it will become one of the heaviest karma. Then killing a holy saint who has attained sainthood by eradicating all the defilements. That's why we call him holy man. Killing a holy man. Then creating injuries to a Buddha, because no one can kill a Buddha. Buddhas must face natural death. Another person cannot take away the life of a Buddha, but can make injuries. That is also one of the heaviest karma. Devadatta has done, one of the disciples. And the last one, it is controversial to me. Why? This will become the heaviest karmas only to the monks, not to the lay people. But karma is natural. We cannot separate the karma, these karmas only for the monks and these karmas only for the lay people. I cannot understand it. Take for instance, if a monk killed a man and one of you also kill a man, same bad karma, same bad karmic effect, no extraordinary karmas for the monk. Karmic thoughts are very common. Whether monks or laymen makes no difference. The monks violate or break one of these precepts, and you also break one of these precepts. Same bad karma, no extra bad karmas to the monk. Let us take drinking. You come to know a monk take drink. After drinking, you come and scold that monk. You think you are at liberty to drink, the monk is not, has no that freedom. If drinking creates a bad karma, both is equal defect. No different whether that layman or monk. Karma is karma. But the monks had to face extraordinary bad effect. Scolding, accusing, blaming, criticizing, condemning, these are the things. But not the bad karma. No extra bad karma for the monk. So by committing this, how can you come and blame the monk? Those monks who commit the same thing. Both are in the same boat. Then, this I cannot understand. Why only monks create this heavy karma? Supposing if you have committed this, what is this? Creating division or what we call disputes among the Sangha community. Divide into two. They become rival parties. If you have done that, it will become ordinary karma. If I do that, it will become a heavy karma. I cannot understand. What justification is there? Anyway, it doesn't matter. You have more freedom to create dispute. So if anyone has committed one of these 5 heavy karmas, that person cannot become a holy arahanta or saint within that lifetime. Of course, according to other religions, eternal hell. Buddhism never talks about eternal hell. There will be certain period or long period, but there will be an end to it. Quite reasonable. That is what Julius Huxley says. I really cannot understand why God wants to send certain people who have committed minor mistake for eternal hell. Because he is given only one chance, one life. Within one lifetime, it is impossible for a person to become perfect. So how can that God send him to eternal hell just because of minor mistake that he has done? That is his argument. So, from the Buddhist point of view, there is no eternal hell, no eternal heaven. In heaven, you can experience heavenly bliss for a long period, but there will be an end to it. In hell, also a long period you have to suffer. However, from the Buddhist point of view, hell is not the particular place, ready-made place, created by anybody, where people suffer more from their birth up to last breath, without even any interval. The whole life is nothing but suffering. That is hell. This is the way how the Buddha has introduced hell. So it is not a separate particular place. Hells we can find everywhere. There is no separate place under this earth or anywhere. So, beside these 5 heavy karmas, if we have committed some other normal bad karma, we have a chance to overcome by doing more and more good karmas, by performing more and more good karmas. There are three things we have to do. This is called forgiveness of our sin from the Buddhist point of view. Since another person cannot forgive, the Buddha has taught the method how to do this. Even the Buddha cannot do for us, but he taught us what to do. Assume we have committed certain bad karmas. Later, we came to know that what we have done earlier are bad, create bad karma. By realizing this, we completely stop. No more committing such bad karmas anymore. That is the first step. Second step, do more and more good karmas as much as possible. Not enough. Last step, try to reduce mental impurities such as hatred, anger, greed, selfishness. Reduce the heaviness of these bad karma, not karma, bad thoughts. These are the three things. Then get the chance to overcome the bad effect. But not by praying or worshipping or offerings or performing any religious ceremonies or torturing your bodies. The Buddha never recommended any of these things. Three things. Stop and do more good deeds and purify the mind. It is very meaningful, very practical, very useful, can understand. Then, here the argument is, people who have committed so many bad deeds enjoy their life by using either their cleverness or cunningness or intelligence or influence in various other ways. But they can escape only for a certain period. Even within this lifetime also, only for few years. We had few living examples here in this country as well as some other part of the world. What happened to Kalimuttu? Regarded as a very clever man who has killed more than 17 people. What was his fate? He had to pay. Many years ago, there was a man called, Botachin. Very clever man, Botachin. He was caught, sentenced to death. Anyway, he had donated his eyes. Although he had committed a lot of bad deeds, he knew this is very important. Donated his eyes. Botachin. I hope the one who got his eyes will never become second Botachin. What happened to that drug kings in Colombia? Few months ago, regarded as a very clever man. He has shaken the government also. That is what the Buddha says. They can enjoy there for a certain period, or a few years, or the whole lifetime. What about the next life? Next existence? All the bad effects come to them. Then the next life will be originated through the influence of these bad karma. then that life will become nothing but suffering, full of suffering. Become the most miserable life. Right. Another argument. There are innocent people who have never committed any bad deeds, who never harmed others or disturbed others, but they have to suffer. They are the ones who bring forward this argument. We have not done any harm to anybody, but those people have done so much damages to others, but they enjoy their life and we are suffering. This is the argument. The answer is, although we are good, we do not harm others, we have not done any damages to anybody within this lifetime, and we do not know what we have done during our previous birth. Up to this stage, we were protected by our strong good karmas, and those supportive karmas are no more. Although we are innocent, within this lifetime, those previous karmas get the chance to affect. That is how innocent people get into trouble. Another example. By using your full effort, or energy, or intelligence, or spending millions of dollars, you could manage to escape from the punishment. When rebirth takes place, all the bad effects follow and catch you. You stop the effect by using force. So don't think you are saved. You can satisfy. But within this lifetime you did not experience any bad effect. Therefore you think you are saved. No. The suffering starts from the next life only. If not, if there are more good karmas to support you, even in the next life also you can escape. Again continue. But the bad karmas also follow you by watching. When you are weak, then affect. Certain birds, especially crows, they are watching certain small creatures running here and there. But when they are active, the crows do not come near. When they are very weak, when they have difficulty of walking, then the crows come and try to attack them. Let's take rats. When the rats are very active, they are scared because they bite. But when they are weak, the crows come and attack straight away. So the karma also exactly like this. So by using our common sense, we can understand what the Buddha is trying to clarify here. Madhua manyati balo, those who are very narrow-minded, those who do not know how to think and understand properly, think. They can enjoy this forever by committing bad deeds. So why do people want to create bad deeds? Because they can experience the good result immediately. robbery or kidnapping, immediate result, same day. But by giving dana, doing good deeds, you had to wait for a long time, whole lifetime you had to wait to see the good result. But by robbing or bluffing and swindling, immediate result. That is why they like to do this. But immediate result, no doubt, they experience. The bad effects sometimes not immediately, come later. Good result also, similar to that. Now when you plant a mango tree, or rambutan, or durian, you cannot experience immediate good result. You had to wait for many years. So the good result of good karma, good karmic deeds, exactly like this. We had to wait. When we meet, when good karmic effects are needed, we experience. And good karmic result also, we do not experience if we do not use our effort. They don't come easily because we have to use our effort. Nahi suttasya singhasya pravisanti mukhe mriga. Lion is the king of the beasts in the jungle. Even then, if these lions sleep day and night without going out for hunting animals, animals never come and enter into its mouth. Must go out for hunting. So the good karmic result we gain according to our knowledge, intelligence and effort, how we use. So we should not wait to experience the good result automatically. This is the nature of karma. Now you plant certain fruit trees. You had to use fertilizer and you had to do watering. You had to look after this. Then you can see the fruits. If you neglect, after planting this, sometimes you won't gain the fruits, or the tree may die. So we had to support our good karma by using our understanding, our intelligence and our effort. This is the nature of karma. Karma is neither kind or nor cruel. It is neutral. Karma has no religion. Karma is not belong to any particular religion, although we talk about karma. Karma means natural occurrence or a reaction, not created by another person. Take two examples, negative and positive. We scold and slap a man. That is bad karma that you commit. You violated existing universal law. First thing, you have no right to scold. Second thing, you have no right to beat. Since you have violated this, then sometimes immediately, if not later, you also have to experience the same bad effect. either from the same person or from another person. So that reaction of karma is not created by another person, but there must be a person to put into practice. Either humans or animals or wind or rain or thunder or lightning, there must be an external force. On the other hand, you show your kindness, your sympathy, your cooperation to a person when that person is in trouble. And immediately or later, you also in return get his or his family members or his friends' support, kindness, compassion. That is the effect. Negative, positive. All our good and bad karmas are like this. So we experience this. We regard this as dharma. That is under the dharma, the universal nature, universal law, universal phenomena. We are subject to all these natural phenomena. If we violate, we cannot escape from the punishment, not punishment actually, bad effect. By worshipping, praying, offering, or praising. Let us take two strong forces. We had to cooperate. Otherwise we get into trouble. Electricity and gravity. These two forces can kill us if we do not cooperate with them. We must know how to deal with them, how to handle them. If we handle electric gadget wrongly or due to our ignorance, we get electric shock and may die. That electric current has no sympathy to consider this is a child, this is a religious man, this is a useful man, no difference. That's why I told you, neither cruel nor kind. Karma and this. So our duty is to know. The knowledge is important for that. Now we are here to gain some knowledge. How to handle things, how to deal with so many things without violating, without breaking the religious principles and noble way of life or reasonable way of life. So that knowledge is important. If you do not gain this knowledge, you cannot understand whether certain things that you are doing, right or wrong. So due to your ignorance, not knowing that they are dangerous, you touch, then you get into trouble. Ignorance is not an excuse. Ignorance can aggravate the bad effect. If ignorance get the concession or what you call some sort of excuse, and nobody wants to know anything. It's easiest way not to know anything. You can say we are ignorant, then you will be free. The Buddha has given a parable for that. Supposing there is a hot plate and we ask one of the adults to come and touch this one. Then he come and touch like this. Touch. He knows how to escape. And we ask an innocent child to come and touch this. This child doesn't know the danger of this. This child comes and burn. Okay. That is ignorance. So ignorance cannot give accusers for the karma. It is not ignorance, unintentional. If you do things unintentionally, we will be free from the bad effect that we have to carry with us. But immediate bad effect we had to face. They are worldly conditions. Worldly conditions can disturb, take for instance, motor car accident. Unintentionally you have done that. You are free from the bad karmic effect from the religious point of view, since you had no intention in your mind to do that. Even then, you may get into trouble. You knock down or kill a person. His relatives, his friends, or some others may come and beat you or kill you or burn your motor car. They are worldly conditions. But you have not committed any bad karma for you to carry with you for the later part of your life or the next life. Unintentionally. Or unintentionally we may take poisons, we may die. Action and reaction, but has nothing to do with religion. So that is moral and immoral. In our action, if some sort of morals or immorals are involved, then it will become good karma and bad karma, which will follow us. So many of our actions are free from either morals or immorals, neutral. Now for our living, every day we are doing so many things, action. All are karmas. Karma means action. But many of them are not belong either to moral side or immoral side. You do many things for your living, for your pleasure, for you to support. But you can divert your mind to make them either morals or immorals, according to your way of thinking, or the purpose, or the intention. Any kind of karma, action, you can divert into a good karma or bad karma. I think you can remember the parable given by Dr. Paul Dahlke, a German Buddhist scholar. I have repeated this so many times. Can you remember? It's very simple but meaningful. Just now I told you, any kind of action we can divert into a good karmic side or bad karmic side. We want to keep some honey in this cup. If we keep this honey like this, although covered with the ants can go inside and spoil your honey. So what you do, you pour some water into this place and keep. So what is the idea of pouring water into this cup? To protect your honey, that's all. Now there you have not done either good karma or bad karma. The same action you can divert to make into a good karma. By pouring water into this cup, You think. I can see it, the life of those innocent ants goes inside and die. Then it will become good karma. Intention. Any action that you do turn into good karma or bad karma according to your way of thinking. So simple but very meaningful. So, this very complicated subject. There are 4 things that we never get a clear picture in Buddhism. The Buddha's advice. We may get some sort of understanding or knowledge, but not clear. Because our understanding capacity is very limited. Our senses are very limited. Our thinking power is limited. Our intelligence is limited. Therefore, we cannot catch the real jhana visaya, hamma visaya, these 4. We may learn throughout our life. Still there are certain dark corners that we cannot see properly. Buddha Vishaya, the nature of the Supreme Enlightened Buddha. Our way of thinking about the Buddha. Nature of his enlightenment and wisdom. What sort of enlightenment or wisdom he had? How did he get it? We cannot understand. Always there is a limit in our way of measuring. To some people, the Buddha is a great thinker, great philosopher, good man, religious man who had some wisdom and knowledge and understanding. He also done some service to mankind. That is Buddha to many people. To some others, he is a supernatural man, extraordinary man, and therefore we cannot measure his nature, his knowledge, his wisdom. To some others, he is a messenger or the prophet of a God, and knowledge and wisdom given by the God. This is the way how they measure. So our knowledge about the Buddha is still very limited. We never get the clear picture. Second one is Loka Vishaya, more complicated. Different world system, world cycle, different forms of living beings, different colors, 2-legged, 4-legged, or without any legs, or with feathers or wings to fly. Some are in the water, some on the ground, on the earth, some can fly. Different shape, wonderful colors. So how these living beings come into existence in this manner? We have 2 answers. Many people say, this is the way how God created. That's all. Nothing to study. God created like this, that's all. Some others say, this is nature. Nature creates. Condition. Then what is nature? There is no such entity or unit that we can point out as nature. Such things never exist separately. We say it is nature when certain conditions, certain factors, certain energies and known and unknown things contributed. Then we say this is nature. We use the word nature or natural. So whatever word we use, we have no knowledge to understand why these differences, discriminations, colors, different shape, and different climate in different countries. This is the second thing, that we, by using our human mind, normal human mind, we cannot get a clear picture. Third one is jhana visaya. Jhana means the development of mind by reducing evil forces from the mind, some sort of psychic power that people gain by using that mental energy when they develop this mental energy. After that, they can perform certain supernormal powers, such as to appear and disappear, to transform a different shape into different shape, fly there, walk on the water. These kind of supernormal power we cannot understand. To the Buddha, they are not very important. No religious value. Just to show some sort of powers that they have. But we cannot understand, because we have not gained this supernormal power or psychic power in our mind. So we create our own imagination. And the last one is this karma. We say karma. First and foremost, can we find out where it is stored, located in our body? Just like soul, eternal soul. An argument took place with a very learned religious leader in India. He came to challenge, because he heard that the Buddha does not believe there is an eternal soul, Atma. So he came to challenge with his few hundred followers. His name is Satchaka. Then the Buddha asked, you believe that there is an eternal soul? Yes. Now can you tell me where it is in your body? Now in our body, there are 4 elements and 4 mental energies. Do you think this soul exists in one of these 4 elements in the body? He said no. Do you think this soul exists in one of these 4 mental faculties? He said no. We have 6 senses, 5 senses and the mental image. Do you think soul exists in one of these 6 senses? He said no. Then where does it exist? No answer. That means he believes there is, that's all. In the same manner, we believe there is karma. But Abhidhamma very clearly says karma is not located in any part of our body or mind. then where is it? Example is given when a mango tree started blooming flowers and after that fruits. Innocent man think all these fruits were a store in the trunk of the tree. They are coming out from the trunk of the tree. Alright, when they cut and see no fruits inside. But we cannot understand how many factors and how many kind of energies have contributed to produce these fruits. To produce a life, we need 5 factors. If one of them is missing, there is no life. They are called Pancha Niyama Dhamma. Chitta Niyama, Kamma Niyama, Bija Niyama, Dhamma Niyama, Uttu Niyama. 5. Chitta Niyama, mental factor. If there is no mind, it is impossible to produce a life. Albert Einstein, although he was not a Buddhist, he says, matters or energies cannot produce a life. Again, he rejected the belief that certain scientists had. First, elements and energies develop in the mother's womb. Later, mental energy appears. He rejected this belief. I do not know whether he has read any Buddhist book. It is mentioned in the Buddha's teaching, Viññānaṁ mātukuchismiṁ okkamati. First, the departed consciousness must enter into a mother's womb. Later, all the elements and so many energies and factors contribute to build up. Albert Einstein says, mind must come first, not the matters or elements. So, there must be a mind. So this is the universe infinite. There is neither beginning nor end. Living beings always exist. We have only very limited knowledge about the universe and living being. We know only about the living being here on this earth. Beyond that we have no knowledge. Understand? So the mind is one of the important factors first. Then karma. Mental energy remains without karmic effect. Then cannot create a life. If that mind is free from karmic effect, that mind cannot produce a life. Example, the Buddhas, Arahantas, Pacceka Buddhas, their minds are free from karmic effect. So they cannot produce another life. That is the end of their journey, they stop. So if there are no karmas, no more rebirth, no more existence again, stop. That is the second factor. Third one is bija niyama, BG, seed or germ or germinal order. Mind is there, karmic energies are there, but if there is no BG or seed or germ, no life. BG alone cannot produce a life. If there is no mind, if there are no karmas. A plant life, the biji, can produce a plant, roots, but no life. That life is different. No karma, no mind. Free from both. Then uttunya, season, period. For everything there is a period. But these belong to cosmic energies. Seeds also belong to cosmic energies. Season also belong to cosmic energies. Contributions of cosmic energy, karmic energy, mental energy, all combined together. Rain and heat, cold, or winter, summer. There is a season. Even plant life also depends on this season. And the child, the baby, the conception takes place in the mother's womb during certain period. That is seasonal order. If all the others are there, if proper season is not there, no life. It's very scientific. Last one is Dhamma Niyama. This Dhamma word gives different meaning. Here, entirely different meaning. Natural phenomena, Dhamma. That is what we say nature. We do not know all the other factors. And if not God, we use the word nature. Oh, it is natural. Nature creates this. So nature is something which we cannot single out, point out, cannot see. Nature comes into existence due to the contribution of so many other factors. These are the five. All these five must combine together. Mental energy, karmic energy, germinal order, and season and nature. Five factors combined together, then the life comes into existence. But no soul there. These are the things that we cannot understand easily. But if you study systematically, then we get little bit of knowledge to understand that it is true. That is enough. We cannot explain in detail. When you study, we can understand, yes, it is true. So, after that we can withdraw all imaginations, misconceptions that we had earlier. This knowledge is important for that. So still, our knowledge about the karma is not clear. When we committed a bad karma, when we do certain good karmas, morals or immorals, by performing certain things which belong to moral side, we cooperate with the existing universal law. Universal law also not created by a person. The universe exists because of this. Otherwise no universe. So if we violate one of these universal laws, naturally we get into trouble. So, Dhammo have rakkati dhammachari. One who lives in accordance. That means cooperating with this Dhamma here, universal law. By cooperating with this universal law, without violating. And then this universal law protect, never disturb. So all the others interpret this as God. It is only a word, makes no difference whether God or nature. Concept and the word. When we violate this, there will be bad reaction, bad effect. Those who are not belong to any of these religions also experience the same good and bad effect. The religion is not important here. Otherwise they can say, oh, we are not belong to any of these religions, therefore we have no karma. We have no bad karma, we have no good karma. No, they never say like that. They also experience the same result, whether they believe or not. So, in other words, by following this karmic theory, we try to cooperate with the existing universal, whether in the name of religion or even without any religion. Because all the good qualities and bad qualities that we have not belong to any of these religions, not created by any of these religions. Let us take our kindness or compassion, honesty or sincerity, patience, tolerance, unity or harmony, understanding. All these are called humane qualities. Before religions come into existence, human beings have developed all these. So not created by religion. Later, religions borrow these ideas and introduce as their teaching. Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, every religion. They borrowed these ideas and into God-given all these things. Then cruelty, anger, jealousy, grudge, ill will, enmity, cunningness, all the evil thoughts. They say devil created all these things. But Buddhism never says devil created all these things. Negative, positive, in our mind, always there is a friction. That is why the difficulty of controlling our mind that we experience. So otherwise, no existence. If all the qualities are very favorable, very natural, very religious, no existence. If all are bad qualities, also no existence. Both exist. So it is a battle by realizing for us to train the mind and tame the mind to reduce evil attitude, evil forces, and to cultivate all the good qualities. This is the normal way of interpretation without depending on any religion. Those who have no religion, they can understand this clearly. But religions explain certain things which others cannot explain. Take for instance rebirth. People say yes, we believe, but they do not know what it is, how it takes place, what are the factors, what are the causes. They do not know anything. So when we learn all these things, then we gain confidence. Not only just to believe that rebirth is true, but we have enough reasons to justify that it is true. Knowledge is important for that.